Anthony McGill says when he first fell in love with music, he practiced the clarinet like an athlete training for the Olympics.
I liked sports. I grew up in Chicago when Michael Jordan was, at the height of the Bulls and those championships.
With classical music came a series of hoops to jump through and tests to pass. But as he got older, he learned more about how those hoops and tests were designed.
Those setups are made in a way that perhaps discriminate against certain peoples.
McGill went on to become the first African-American principal player in the New York Philharmonic, an ensemble that's been around since 1842.
As outsized as some of the opportunities that I've gotten to perform and to prove my merit, there are many people that have had complete opposite and negative experiences trying to prove their own worth and their merit within that system. And a lot of those stem from race.
According to a 2014 study, less than 2% of the players in top ensembles were Black, less than 3% were Latino. Blind auditions, where musicians audition behind a screen, are an attempt to level the playing field. The idea took off in the late 60s when two Black musicians took the New York Philharmonic to court, arguing they had been discriminated against during the hiring process.
One of the things that orchestras started doing to correct this situation was to start holding auditions behind screens.
Anthony Tomasini is a New York Times classical music critic.
So that the identity of the person would not come into play.
But now Tomasini wants to get rid of blind auditions because he says there are still too few Black and Latino players in major orchestras, and identity should matter. Orchestras, he says, should reflect the community.
The idea of meritocracy in this case, that the very, very best players measured on some scale are the only ones who should be in an orchestra, I just reject that.
But others argue blind auditions are too important to abandon. In 1970, less than 6% of orchestra players were women. Now half of the New York Philharmonic is female.
The screen is an improvement over how they used to do it.
Carmen Limon is the principal flutist with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra, and she spent thousands of dollars on flights and hotel rooms just to show up for auditions.
In the flute world, most of the students and players are women. In the top orchestras, most of the principal flute players are men. Like, statistically, that doesn't make sense to me.
I've been very lucky. I had a series of really great teachers.
Michael Morgan is the music director of the Oakland Symphony and one of a small percentage of Black conductors in the country. He says so much of a person's classical music career is a combination of determination and happy accidents, and intentional funding for music education in public schools. He's been conducting since he was 12 years old.
My teachers were all so overqualified to be public school teachers that for them, it just made it more interesting to be able to teach things at a level that you would not normally teach in public schools.
That, he says, is where the quest to diversify orchestras needs to begin, and he says this is necessary for anyone who wants the classical music symphony to survive.
You do have to proactively work to diversify programming and artists and composers, and it doesn't happen accidentally. You have to actually work at it.
Donato Cabrera, music director for the California Symphony, agrees. In 2017, the California Symphony became the first orchestra to issue a public statement committing to diversity.
It's so easy to get hung up on the three Bs, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, and of course Mozart, and all the composers that we are also familiar with. But there is so much other repertoire that should be celebrated.
Now most orchestras have shut down due to the pandemic, but the movement for Black lives has forced people to pay attention and listen.
I truly believe you cannot fix what you do not measure.
Atha Dworkin is president and artistic director of the Sphinx Organization, a group founded to address underrepresentation in classical music.
I'd love to be here together in a year and say, wow, look at our presenting houses, at our orchestras today, and look at how far they've come and how far they say they still want to go.
After the killing of George Floyd, Anthony McGill, the principal clarinet chair for the New York Philharmonic, picked up his instrument. and then he closed his eyes, took 2 knees, and kneeled in silence. He posted this performance online and urged other musicians to pick up their instruments and play for justice and decency. For Philosophy Talk, I'm Holly J. McDede.